Hi, this is Dave Kelly and this is the Man Shit Podcast, where we interview all manner of people, providing real life tips for men to be better men. Today I'm interviewing Joey Hayes in part 2 of the series. Joey's one of Australia's leading and most successful strength and conditioning specialists. In this episode, we talk about a bunch of things, including diet and what's really been working for Joey and his elite clients. We also discuss being alcohol free and why Joey started on this path, and more interestingly, why he stayed on it. Enjoy the episode. Welcome back indeed to the second part of this great chat with my mate Joey Hayes from the Gold Coast, Australia. Two Australians together, so I thought I'd put my Aussie hat on in recognition of that. Hey Joey, continue on. We had a great talk the first part of the interview, but tell me this, coronavirus, how have you seen that playing out in the lives of, with your experience, the lives of, I'm going to take this off because it's a bit of a distraction.
Kakadu Dave, I love it.
Kakadu Dave. Joey, obviously there's been, as different parts of the world, and particularly in Australia and Victoria, has been shut down for an extended period of time, that has an effect on people's mentality. It's had an effect on a lot of people at home, their screen time. You know, you were talking about screen times, getting away from that when it comes to getting good, healthy sleep. People are spending a lot more time in front of screens. They're a lot less time moving their body. They're compromising. Alcohol sales in Australia, when the shutdowns were first announced, man, they skyrocketed. It was one of the industries that boomed, was alcohol sales, because people are thinking, geez, I better pack a bit away for them, in case we have this for a long period of time. How has the coronavirus played out from your experience, and do you see your people, your athletes, the ones you're training and downloading your encouragement and vision to, are you seeing them prosper at this time?
Mate, up here in Queensland, we've been quite lucky. So my viewpoints on the coronavirus are very strong. They will offend some people, but that's what it is. This is man chat. You can say, have your own opinion without having to feel like you've got to be censored. So we had a lockdown up here, a hard lockdown for about, I think, maybe 8 weeks, where we weren't able to open our businesses, even though there's been no evidence that coronavirus can be spread through surface-to-surface contact in a gym. As a matter of fact, there's been zero cases of coronavirus spread through a gym. I saw on the Fitness Network website. From a mental state, I was pretty lucky because a lot of the young athletes I had, they weren't any none the wiser. It was pretty much still normal for them, apart from a little bit of homeschooling. My professional athletes, they weren't. So the guys from the Gold Coast Suns, they were not allowed to see anyone. They weren't allowed to see any outside help. They had to be within the bubble to be able to get the AFL off the ground. Yeah. They couldn't see anyone socially. They couldn't give them any tickets. It was pretty much they were locked down within that hub. So that obviously has a detrimental effect to people that like to get away from football, that want to be able to go for a surf, they want to be able to go for a walk in the mountains, they want to go for a hike at Mount Warning, people that want to go fishing. So the AFL actually, they weren't allowed to get out of the bubble. They had to stay within lockdown. And from a business perspective, when you've been an investor and you're providing, homes for people and the government, and people aren't able to work, which is the government-based lockdown in the entire society, where people aren't able to generate an income, which means that people that are investors that own property were then having to forego rental income potentially because people have no money. They can't pay the rent. And you can't, as a landlord or a property owner, you weren't able to kick them out, which obviously we don't want to see people on the street, but, you put yourself under the pump financially to be able to provide homes for people to live in. The banks are still charging you interest, and you've got to pay that interest back, although they were deferring them, which means they defer the loans for 6 months. They still require you to pay them 6 months later. Yeah. So when you tell people, the suicide rates have gone up for the number of people that died that had comorbidity factors, and the fact that they're all pretty much over the age of 80 in nursing homes, you think that why wouldn't the government go, hang on a minute, the majority of people are dying in nursing homes of pre-existing conditions that are over 80. Maybe we should lock down nursing homes. Maybe we should let everyone else in society go about living their normal lives, generating income and doing what they need to do. It doesn't make sense to shut down everyone that's healthy, everyone that's got no existing conditions. Yeah, so that's why I just found it interesting. I don't know why. Because, again, if you look at the evidence that's presented, that lockdowns don't actually work. This stuff's come out from the World Health Organization. Now it's well known. They don't recommend lockdowns. They don't recommend social distancing. They actually don't even think that the coronavirus is a pandemic. The World Health Organization come out and said that, because you've literally got a 0.0001% chance of dying if you contract this particular illness. So you got more chances of getting hit by a car, getting eaten by a shark, dying in a plane crash. And again, when you've got lockdowns, there's a lot of social issues that are happening as well in terms of suicide. The suicide rates are up. The domestic violence rates are up. And a wise man once said, you take a man's livelihood away, you may as well kill him anyway. So in Melbourne, I've got quite an extensive family in Melbourne, and they're still under hard lockdown, which it has been now for almost 6 months, unable to open a business, unable to go outside. I mean, I think you can't go more than 5 kilometres away from your house. You can't go out after 8 o'clock at night. You can only exercise for an hour a day. I mean, holy shit, we're not living in communist China. And again, the minister down there, Dan Andrews, trots out the number of, we've had 5 people die, we've had 700 people test positive. Yeah, you've told us how many people tested positive, but you haven't told us how many are actually critically ill. And I think at last check, there was literally like 8 people in intensive care around Australia. So you've shut the borders down, you've locked businesses down, you've crippled the economy, you're giving everyone $750 a week to live on, even if they're on $200 a week. So, mate, there's no way you can justify it. And as a good friend of mine said yesterday when we were out for lunch, he goes, Joey, the government has become the daddy. Oh, we don't want to. Back in the 80s, mate, there was a recession. We're in another recession now. Back in the 80s, the government wasn't giving people handouts. If you were overextended, if you had no cash reserves, your business went belly up. You lost everything. Now the government's your daddy. Oh, you got a problem? Here's $750.
Oh, yeah.
Here's some incentives. Here's this. Here's that. Here's rent assistance. Here's whatever. So people. What it does is it doesn't build resistance. It doesn't build resilience. And it doesn't teach anyone. It doesn't teach anyone lessons. You're not actually learning. When you fail, you learn a lesson. So here, a government. We don't want anyone to suffer in Australia, which is great. But you don't have to work. The government will support you. You can't afford a house. The government will give you one. You haven't got a job. The government will pay you to sit at home and twiddle your thumbs. So it's a very interesting time, mate. We're having more regulation and more regulation. It started in the 70s and slowly but surely there's more regulation. You can't have more than 3 people in a restaurant. You've got to stand 5 metres away. Mate, you've got to wear a helmet. You've got to wear a seatbelt. Mate, if people are stupid enough not to wear a seatbelt or a helmet, let them.
That's right.
But you don't need to fine them. Just go, look, mate, maybe you don't want to live here. Maybe you don't deserve to be here.
Yeah, that's right.
But the government doesn't need to enforce this stuff. I mean, you remember what it was like in the 70s. You go and light a fire on the beach, have a drink on the beach, drive your car on the beach. Now, none of that. You can't do anything unless Big Brother and Dad, unless the government lets you. So,
this might be.
I think I've said my piece.
Yeah.
Anything else, Joe?
One of the things I have enjoyed about living in the US, and this will be a little bit controversial, and hear what I'm saying. What Joey's saying is true. Australian society has changed to the point where we've been so confined and told what we can do, can't do, the way to think, the way to act and behave, etc. We're the most over-governed country in the world, is my understanding, at all different levels: state, federal, local, and then within local you have other interference. And we're always being told.
You know what it's like to get a development through, mate. You try to get your development plans through on the Gold Coast or at the council, mate. You're in there for 12 months holding up red tape and bureaucracy. You told me that you got that development approval in the US in literally a day. You went to the office, said, I'm doing this. They're like, fine, go for it.
Yeah. There's many different, and I do enjoy the fact that the US has got such a big population. There's no way you can have the same number of bureaucrats managing them.
They've also got guns.
Yeah, they've got guns, and they'll use them. They've been armed so they can defend themselves against the government. We've not got no guns, and no sort of ability to really provide much of a resistance to the government in Australia. You come to Europe, and it's the same, even more so. And people generally learn to be respectful, and they learn to, if they're going to ride a motorbike, and they do it. I saw it yesterday, riding along the freeway at 110 kilometres an hour, and there's 3 guys on a motorbike, 3. No helmets. And I'm thinking, well, boys, if you come off, you're going to be mincemeat. But you learn responsibility when you actually have to engage with the consequences of your actions rather than be shielded by some law. And I'm not sure it's the right way to build a resilient community, is to have bunches of laws and things.
Mate, the other thing too is now everyone's offended. You can't say anything. So freedom of speech, you're censored. You can't say something because it might offend someone. If you're a privileged white fella, you're the world's worst now. Black lives matter. So do white lives, pink lives, yellow lives, transgender lives. They all matter. No one's lives are more important than anyone else's.
Yeah. And no doubt someone who's watching this will be arcing up and saying, well, Black Lives Matter. You're saying Black lives don't matter. No. It's about context. It's about context. I listened to a brilliant interview this morning, Tom Bailey interviewing a guy whose name escapes me because I've just listened to the interview, but he was very controversial, saying that made a statement, and he's a prominent person now. But one of the statements he made was that black people deserve, they're not ready for freedom. And what he was saying by that was, he was saying that in their mind, we are all free men. We have to live that way. But as soon as you believe that you're not free, then and he was generalizing his black brethren by saying that they're not in their mind ready to be free. So they're not ready to be free. They don't deserve to be free because their mentality is not up to it.
That's what I believe, yeah.
You know, really big thing to say. I'm glad he said, as a black man, probably get a fair bit of heat over that. But really, it's about personal responsibility. And Joey, it just seems to me that one of the things I love, and I've followed a few bodybuilders, and I know we've said before, you get bodybuilders who steroids up and they get massively sized and whatever. But when I've looked at a few people, if you look at The Rock Johnson, for example, that guy's seems to be a pretty well-rounded individual. You know, he's obviously got a great physique and all that. But when you listen to him talk about the principles, he's often popping up talking about the American election at the moment. And he's a well-rounded individual. But what I see, and when I started with you in the gym as a focus thing for the very first time in my life, because up until then, what I'd done was athletic stuff. It was AFL football and then triathlon, swimming, running, riding, etc., and a lot of cycling. I got into the gym and I started to look at other guys who had really improved their physical preparedness. But really, a lot of that was their commitment was a commitment to themselves and to turn up regularly and through thick and thin, through all weather conditions, whatever is going on, to turn up consistently. And that really shows a great mentality, doesn't it? And I think that the bodybuilding community, people who really do improve themselves physically, to me, it starts with this, and then it starts to show in the body.
Well, the body doesn't lie, mate. It's the great equaliser. You can lie about how much money you make, you can lie about how many women you slept with, but your physical attributes that you show dictate how disciplined you've been with your diet, how disciplined with your training, and also with your recovery, mate. The body doesn't lie. And the beautiful thing about training is you can actually see the tangible results of how hard you work. So the harder you work, provided that you're eating well and provided you're recovering well, the better your physique's going to be. But the other thing too is when you make a promise to yourself, I'm going to train on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and you keep those promises, that develops confidence, that develops self-esteem, because when you break small promises with yourself, I think that cripples self-esteem. And I think that makes you not less of a man, but you just don't feel as empowered as if you are committing to something. Because if you commit to that session, I'm going to complete that session no matter what. If it's raining, if it's snowing, I'm going to get to complete that session. And the guys that need a good kick up the backside, if they're not familiar with a guy called David Goggins, search his stuff and he will certainly inspire you to push the boundaries, you know, never missing sessions and, you know, training the wet and training the snow. And, you know, it's that little commitment you make to yourself that starts the process of excellence, because you're not lying to yourself anymore. You either did that session or you didn't. You're either disciplined enough to follow through with your word, and that's where, you know, we spoke about this in that terms of integrity. And one of those masculine traits that I love is integrity, which means if you say you're going to do something, you do it, because your word is your bond.
Absolutely.
And in the old days, as you would be aware, there was nothing. If your word was, if you didn't follow through in your word and it meant nothing, no one trusted you. No one did business with you. No one did work with you.
And you don't trust yourself.
Yeah. And you don't back yourself. So
there's a wonderful book, and you haven't mentioned it now, but I don't know whether you're aware of it. You probably have heard of it, called The Four Agreements. A super book. And The Four Agreements is a famous book, and I'd recommend everyone have a look at that, because it's very simple. And it starts out 4 agreements. The first one is be impeccable with your word. And really, what you're talking, I'm really focusing at the moment on this. I've been a bit slack with my word. And what that's done, as I've done that, as I've said, and I've flippantly said, people say, do this. Oh, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, no worries. Or I'll meet you then. I'll do this. I end up with a schedule that's so long, and it's doing things where I've loosely given out my commitment or my word to various things, people's commitments and whatever. And when I started breaking my word because, I couldn't do that because I was too busy. I was, all these reasons. Well, no, it's not about that. It's about being a man who says, when I commit myself to something, you can go to the doctor on that. That is absolutely going to be the thing that will happen, is because I'm so focused and I'm so calm that when I commit myself to something, I will do it. That's where we need to get to as men, because then we have the confidence in ourselves that when we apply ourselves, however big that mountain is, if we say, okay, after thinking it out and saying, yep, I'm going to do that, then man, that is going to happen. Whatever needs to be brought in terms of support, education, whatever it is, to garner the efforts you need to achieve that, you will do it because you're a man who fulfills his word. The next one he talks about in that book is don't take anything personally. That's a big one. Don't make assumptions is the third one. And making assumptions leads us up so many garden paths. It's incredible. And I'm always amazed at how I'm going to do a short post coming up about an amazing lesson I learned just a few days ago about making assumptions. I got someone said something and I heard them wrong. And from that point, I made up a whole story about what was going to happen and who the type of person they were based on something that was wrong. I made a whole reality around it. And then I made all these assumptions. And then when I went back and she corrected herself, and I thought, isn't that amazing? I've been living in a reality that was absolutely false, but I thought it was true because I'd made these assumptions. And then the last thing is, the last point is always do your best and turn up and do what you say you're going to do. Yeah, great principles. I love that, Joey. It's I didn't.
I agree, mate. I agree wholeheartedly.
100%, and that's what turning up and doing the work, whatever work that is, whether it's physical, mental, spiritual work, whether it's meditation, whether it's the disciplines you talked about. And I'd love to, I want to lead in and ask you what your daily disciplines are, because it's so much. I listened to a cracking short YouTube last night by Will Smith, who talks about discipline is everything. You need to win the victory in your mind, first of all, before you will have any victory out there in the material world. And these things are so true, aren't they? You know, men, we need to get on this stuff and live this way, be this way, and turn up this way and build our confidence in ourselves. So when we say we will do this, we know that we will do it. And everyone else around us knows that guy, he's dependable. I will back that guy because he will deliver on what he promises on. That's the type of men we need to be.
How you do anything is how you do everything. So that was impressive for me as a young man. So I also learned not to make promises I don't intend to keep. So a quick no is better than a maybe, because then you're figuring out a way how to get out of it. But it's also, and you would know this too, mate, it's also a highly desirable trait with a female. So a woman that's in my presence knows if I say I'm going to do something, whether it be business, health, financial, whether I'm going to organise a place for us to go out for dinner or a holiday, whatever it is, she knows that I'm reliable. She knows that my word is my word and my word is my bond.
Mm.
With our junior athletes, they're required to sign a contract with us, with our young athletes between 12 and 18, and that is my athlete expectations. I believe you've seen them in terms of their nutrition, their training, their schoolwork, their recovery, their mindset, their performance, their punctuality. So that way they're learning a code of conduct that's going to be not just help them be successful when it comes to training, but also when it comes to life. Mm-hmm. And I just say that these characteristics are the ones that my most successful clients, whether they be businessmen, whether they be professional athletes or junior athletes that have gone on to be professional, these are the characteristics and traits that they've displayed over extended periods of time. So if you display these traits, you've got a strong chance of being successful as well. So we give those up front, and then they know that as a 12 or 13-year-old, hey, I've got to be careful who I hang out with, because if I'm hanging out with idiots, that's going to impact upon my performance. So if you and I hang out with smarter, healthier, fitter, more spiritually developed people, that's going to raise our levels of expectation and our standards. It might not be good for our ego because we're the low man on the totem pole, but if we want to be excellent in those areas, we've got to expose ourselves to people that are better than us. I mean, that's why you and I were, I was helping you out with your fitness, you would help me out with my developments. You've done that a lot more than what I have, but people don't want to take the ego hit, because that's a weak mentality. That's a guy that wants to stay the same. That's a guy that doesn't want to improve. Right. And that's a guy that I don't want to hang out with. Period.
Absolutely, man. So, Joey, as an example, I'd love for you just to run us through briefly what your daily protocols are, to give people listening to this an idea of one example of a man who's disciplined, who is got clarity on what your protocols are, and you're delivering. You're going through those each day to put yourself in the greatest position possible. Later on, in consultation with you, I'm guessing that guys would be able to work out their own program of these protocols. But run us through what a typical day for, just briefly, because I know you do a lot of different things. Just run us through, give us an idea of what you do in terms of your discipline.
Oh, mate, well, I don't wake up with an alarm clock, number one. I wake up whenever I want to. So hopefully that's later rather than earlier. But lately, as I've gotten a bit older, I'm sort of up around between 5:30 and 6:30 most mornings. So then when I wake up, I will cruise. Being a diplomatic body type, that's a particular health type, I've got a low tolerance for stress in the morning. So I don't want to be getting up and trying to run around and trying to do everything in the first 5 minutes of the morning. A slow, relaxed morning. So the first thing I look at is my ring data to see how my sleep was. That'll give me a recovery score. That recovery score and information will dictate what I do for the day in terms of my training load and volume. I then use the Healy device here, which tests, I think, about 700 different systems within my body, which gives me a rating. And it does frequency-specific microcurrent, which then says which system is out of alignment or out of whack. And basically, it allows me to set that program up, and I can walk around with that system on me for 30 to 40 minutes doing that program. I'll then walk up to the beach. And the Hair and Av crew, there's heaps of guys up, like heaps of old guys that have owned properties up here that all meet up there in the morning. They have their coffee or their green tea. They talk crap. They decide whether they're going to surf today if their bodies aren't too sore. If the surf's pumping like it is today, it's hard for me to contain my excitement. So I'll have maybe an apple and some bone broth to get some food in me before I run out to the surf. Chuck my rashie on, my board shorts, grab my board, run up and surf until my arms drop off, or until the wind swings around and it's onshore and the waves are no good. I'll then cruise back, have a shower, have my brekkie, which will probably be some sort of protein, some sort of vegetables, sometimes some eggs, and also my supplement protocol. So I've got a.
So you're not having pancakes
back to something.
So no pancakes for breakfast.
No
whipped cream, mounds of maple syrup.
Well, actually, one of my earliest mentors, Charles Poliquin, he was French Canadian, so excuse the accent. They said, because he had about 4% body fat, 6% body fat, and they go, Charles, how do you stay so lean? How do you stay so lean? And he's like 58. He goes, well, what I do is I measure from my elbow to my wrist, and I have a stack of pancakes that high. Then I get 250 mils or 1 cup of maple syrup, and I put the maple syrup on the pancakes. I then get the pancakes and throw them in the bin. I don't eat them. That's the trick. So, no, mate. So, mate, my breakfast and my diet, generally speaking, for most of my clients, is almost what most people would have for dinner. So, a good mate of mine, Joe B, who I'll introduce you to, he's been experimenting with a carnivore diet where all he eats every single meal is meat and fat. So he'll be having meat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then drinking bone broth during the day, just to see. He's going to test and measure it because he's a mad experimenter as well. And so he's got his blood work done, and he's going to see the results of that particular diet for him. I've got another mate who's doing a pure keto diet where he's having a lot more fats in his diet. So there's no one diet fits all. But with the body typing technology that we've got, we have been able to figure out whether some person would do better with keto, intermittent fasting, or paleo. But most people would do better having more protein in the morning. So my earliest mentor, Charles Poliquin, used to say he'd call it the meat and nuts breakfast. So he would recommend having a meat patty and a handful of nuts and a handful of blueberries. And what that would do, that would optimize your neurotransmitter profile for the entire day. So that would drive up what they call dopamine, which means you've got focus and clarity. When most people are having a coffee and a bagel, that shit's driving down dopamine, increasing serotonin. So you're like lethargic and relaxed and you haven't got focus. So protein for breakfast, protein in Greek, proteus means first. So protein in Greek, eat first. The blueberries are high in antioxidants for the calorie content they've got, and a handful of nuts. So our brain responds really, really well to healthy fats. So those 3 elements for breakfast, you're pretty much going to have a fantastic start to the day. 99% of people who've tried that meat and nuts breakfast, they're like, mate, I cannot believe how much energy, how much focus, how much clarity I've got. And it pretty much goes against traditional convention, which is like cereal or having a piece of toast. So that diet works tremendously well for 99% of people. I don't drink coffee. I've never had one coffee in my life. And then I've got my supplement schedule, which is based on my blood chemistries and also my Viome stool testing. So Viome is a company based in the US where you take a sample of your stool and you send that over to the US, and then they analyze it for your microbiome. So the latest thing that's come out over the last decade is your microbiome, or the health of your guts. A lot of people are having gut health issues, and what Biome do is they actually look at the different microbiome that you've got, and they say, well, you've got high levels of inflammation, low levels of good bacteria, high levels of bad bacteria. And then from that information, they can then individualize the diet and also your supplement protocol based on what's presenting with your stool to be able to optimize your gut biome. So different strains of probiotics, different glutamine to increase your gut health and to be able to regenerate your gut wall. Zinc, because you need to help that with rebuilding your gut wall, or potentially what other supplements have we got there at the moment? Probiotics, zinc, glutamine, vitamin D3. So you can pretty much get individualized protocols from there. And for me, one of the interesting things was they didn't recommend turkey. I'd had a lot of turkey, so they said, mate, it's got high purines in it, so you want to avoid that because that's not what you need. So within 2 weeks of changing my diet to follow that, again, my skin folds went down, my bloating went away, my digestive health improved tenfold. And mate, it was literally like $300 to get that sort of information.
Okay.
So another little key. Then after I have breakfast, I will usually do some work, which will usually involve income-producing tasks first. So that's program designs, my consultations on the phone or Skype, and that'll take me till around 12 o'clock. I'll then potentially have lunch, which will be some sort of protein, usually some sort of fish base. So we found that with my gut microbiome, I do really well on fish. So that's been something that I've changed to quite, rather than having, meats and proteins, like that sort of source of protein, having more fish. And then after lunch, I'll usually go for a training session, probably around between 1 and 3 o'clock, and I'll stretch for about 30 to 45 minutes because one of the things I've realised is that most people don't stretch enough, and that's why they get injured. So the 2 ways to stay injury-free, stretching and massage. If you want to be injury-free, that's the only thing you need to do, stretch and massage. So I stretch for about 30 minutes. Then I'll go and train. I'll warm up properly, train for probably 45 minutes. I'm efficient with my training. And then I'll come back, do my contrast showers as a form of recovery, so hot and cold showers. That'll probably be around 3 o'clock. And then I'll hook into some good work between 3 and 6 o'clock. And then sometimes go to the P3 Recovery Centre. Trav, there's a shout-out for you. And they've got magnesium pools, infrared saunas, and massage pens. I think you and I went there. We went there once, didn't we?
We went there a
P3.
Couple.
Yeah. And so the magnesium pools are really good because they'll help, I guess, coat your body in magnesium, which helps you sleep deeper because most people are deficient in magnesium. Come 6 o'clock, I might catch up with a friend. And then probably around between 6 and 6:30 have dinner and then start my sleep process from there. So I'll have my I was lucky I got sent some of these mushroom tinctures from Life Cycle Mushrooms, and basically what they do is they've got different mushroom extract that you have throughout the daytime, and one of the ones that's really good for sleep that I've been working with has been lion's mane. So I've been having 5 mils of this per night, and mate, my sleep data has gone through the roof.
Yeah, right.
So they're not illegal. They're fully they're from Byron Bay, so Life Cycle, really great mushrooms. And I thank my a good mate of mine, Joe B, because he gave me some of them and said to try them. And they're perfectly legal. They're not going to make you have crazy ass dreams. And so that's improved my HRV by about 20. So from probably an average of 75 to 95. So that's been really good.
Wow.
And then I've got my GABA, my 5-HTP. I stretch for about 20 minutes before bed, blue lights off, meditate, breathe, and a grateful journal.
Wow.
So that's pretty much a typical day.
That's awesome.
And be very grateful for having a chat to you, grateful for my athletes, grateful for living a fantastic life. So, and that's most days. But as you know, the surf on the Gold Coast is very fickle. It doesn't get good very often at all.
Yeah.
So if the surf's no good, sometimes I'll train, go for a walk, or otherwise just get straight into business and get a roll and look at the investments, make sure that income's coming in from those. Look at other opportunities as well and see what's available with the market at the moment, and learn, read, usually a bit of reading before bed too. So, mate, just trying to have a great life, The whole point of having money is 2 reasons: to give a life and to get a life, and to do the things you enjoy doing, mate. I love surfing, I love eating, I love training, I love traveling, I love learning, growing and exploring, mate. So if I can do those things and helping people, obviously, doing those things, you're having a pretty fulfilled life.
Now, Joey, I've got to thank you for that. And in references to you and your contacts, we'll put them in the show notes. people will be able to contact you and then pick it up from there. I would suggest with either individualised programs, these protocols you've talked about. I guess you have methods to work with people in that regard. Is that correct? Yep.
Definitely,
okay.
yeah.
Well, there's something really to look forward to. Hey, mate, when I first met you, we went to a conference. There was Suzanne Davis, yourself, and I thought, man, Suze, this guy's he's unplugged. He's bouncing around like a Mexican jumping bean, full of energy. And then when we went to the conference, we then went, I think, and had lunch, and then we got down to a great conversation. And the three of us have had a couple of super conversations. I don't know, almost verging on the. I mean, I have very similar values on about the same thing, which is receiving so that we can build ourselves, so that we can give. Not giving and receiving, but I think the receiving part, you've got to be right yourself before you give, or else you're giving out of a deficit. And so we had this beautiful conversation where it was almost like, whoa, there's more than just us three here. We're sort of creating something beautiful in this. But the thing that came out in that conversation was you didn't drink alcohol. And I thought, I guess I had I go back to the 4 agreements. I guess I had made assumptions about people who didn't drink alcohol. Other people extend that to.
You thought it was part of some weird cult, mate.
I've got friends living not too far from you who have said, never trust a man who doesn't drink alcohol and doesn't eat steak.
Well, mate, I eat plenty of steak, so that's not a problem. But yeah, the alcohol one, that's an interesting one, yeah.
It was so interesting to me. And when we got talking, you said you'd never drunk alcohol. And for me, as a normal kind of Australian guy growing up, alcohol is so embedded in our society, isn't it? As it is in American society, I know that for a fact. But and it was really curious to me. Now, fast forward a few years later, and we'd had a couple of conversations about that, and I still didn't quite get it, because I kind of thought, I like alcohol. Why would you not have it? And yet I think you were saying, and I want to ask you this, but what I gathered you were saying was, it's not going to add anything to my life. Plus, it's a poison. Plus, it dulls you down, and you have half a day off because you're going to hang over when you overdo it. All these reasons. And I kind of thought, yeah, I get that. I understand that, but I still like alcohol. Anyway, a few years later, fast forward, I tried at the suggestion of a friend of mine, James Swanwick, who at his lifestyle conference, he challenged everyone and said, why don't you try not drinking for 30 days and just see how it goes? And at that point in time, I was committed to, as long as the person didn't look like a complete nut job and freak show, I thought, I'm going to try the suggestion. And James certainly doesn't look like any of that. He's a very great guy. And I tried that. And I'll tell you what, it was a great decision, and it's led to a lot of other great decisions. And essentially for now, 18 months, I haven't drunk alcohol. Alcohol adds nothing to my life. And I would say this, the thing I've become really clear about in this trip recently, Joey, is I kind of thought, if no one's telling me what to do in my life. I'm self-directed. I'm doing what I want to do. I'm not saying that in an arrogant, in a stupid way. I'm just saying my life is what I'm choosing it to be. If I've not drunk and I've drunk. If I believed that alcohol would add anything to my life, I tell you what, I'd be drinking every night, probably in maximum doses, because if it's really that good, I want it all. And what I've concluded is it actually does not add at all. And in my analysis, and people will disagree with this, and that's fine. Go and have your Foster's Lager if you want. That's fine. No problems at all. But the thing I've learned is alcohol and all the story, the marketing and the socialization that around that, a lot of it is absolute. It's full of lies. And there's a phrase that I've picked up, and I believe it, is that not drinking actually does deliver what alcohol promises it will deliver, which is when you. And I was with a friend the other night talking, and I said, when people drink, they're normally doing it, and when they drink to excess, they're doing it because they're trying to avoid something. And that's not always the case, because I know plenty of people who have one glass and that's it, and there's nothing more in it than that. But when you're drinking to excess, you're generally not wanting to deal with something. You're wanting to check out. You're wanting to relax because you can't get mastery over your own body and relax otherwise. And you're using it as a prop. And you're a guy who's not drunk all of your life. So how did that happen?
Mate, it's a really good question. And for me, when I was a young bloke, my uncle played professional sport for the Fitzroy Football Club, or Fitzroy Lions, the Brisbane Lions as they're known today. And I was always told from a young age that he never drank. He never drank alcohol. And, my mum and dad love to drink. They're not they're not alcoholics. People go, oh, geez, you don't drink, you must have a bad upbringing. I'm like, oh, it was just drilled into me. It wasn't drilled into me, but I sort of looked at him and I went, okay, well, he's doing something. And, my dad was a very talented footballer and he never made it. But his brother, who is obviously the same genetics as what he is, hopefully, he made it. And I just thought, well, okay. And then I went to a sporting excellence school, and it was renowned for, it had a bit of an alcohol and a drug problem. But for me, I wanted to maximise my performance. And for me, my thought process was that if I don't drink, I'm going to get the advantage over all these other guys that do. And so in that last quarter, when the game's there to be won, I'm going to be the guy they're going to turn to because I'm the fittest, I'm the healthiest, I haven't destroyed myself, I haven't done anything that's negatively impacted upon my body and my health. So it was just it was just solely for performance. I just wanted to get the advantage. And if I can get any advantage, and it's the same with my athletes now, I'm like, look, if our opposition are drinking or not eating the right foods and not recovering, that's how we get the edge over them. We know that when we cross that white line, we've got them covered. As Conor McGregor says, like, hello, I'm looking for my competition. Oops, I can't see any. And we want to have that mindset and that belief that we are doing the work, the training, the recovery work that no one else is doing. So that comes from not consuming alcohol. Now, I'm in agreement that a lot of people drink to escape their problems or to be able to switch off. And I often asked a lot of professional footballers that come to me as senior professional footballers, I ask them, why do you drink? I'm not judging them. I'm just interested to hear the feedback. And a lot of the feedback is that their lives are so controlled to do what they want to do by the club. They've got to be here, there, do this, do that. And it's just their way to switch off. So I've got many different techniques that we use with our athletes to switch off. So, some of the guys will do that tremor. I'll show you the tremor therapy where your whole body literally has tremors, which expresses any physical or emotional trauma your body's ever had, which helps you switch off and helps you sleep deeper. The other thing is that alcohol is a potent performance killer. It decreases your testosterone levels. It affects your sleep adversely. I mean, good when you get your Oura ring, Dave, go and have – actually don't. Get someone else to. Have your sleep normal and then have sleep with alcohol. See what it does to your sleep data. It just kills it.
Wow.
So we know that it actually compromises performance. It doesn't provide any tangible benefits. So for me, it was just about performance. And now as a performance coach, I want to be the real deal. I want to make sure that I've done every program my athletes have done. I've eaten every diet that my athletes have eaten. But if an athlete says to me, oh, Joey, hey, you drink, mate, or you eat shit food, well, why should I? And I'm like, well, I don't. I am consistent. I'm legit. And I think the other thing is that you attract the clients that you are or the clients that want to be similar to you in terms of how you live your life. So my athletes know that if they're caught drinking alcohol, they're banned from my program. It's part of their contract. If they're drinking alcohol and they haven't complied, because one of the prerequisites is that they'll not eat wheat, they'll not have cigarettes, they'll not have drugs, they'll not drink alcohol for the duration of our association together. Wow. So yesterday I was fortunate enough to have my lunch for legends. So I had Kurt Tippett, Matty Hodgson, my project manager and builder, Benny, Brennan Nichols, one of Australia's highest paid performance business coaches, Yancey Orr, who's a professor. We were all out at lunch. Guess how much alcohol was consumed? Not a drop. So they're all in the 1% of their field, and I just look at, and I think success leaves clues, and I go, well, look, what are the most successful guys doing? Another gentleman that you'd be aware of, Marty Ailes, a great mate of mine who's a property developer in Adelaide, doesn't drink. So it's funny how all these non-drinkers, if you want to call us that, all ended up hanging out together. They're all really good at what they do. So there's no pressure. I mean, when you're a teenager growing up on the Gold Coast, everyone, and also playing football, there's that societal expectation that you'll drink. But my mates and my friends and people were very respectful. They're like, Joey doesn't drink. But I mean, I think your viewers would agree that I've got a fair bit of energy, and you probably don't want to see me drunk or on drugs because I'd be an absolute lunatic. So that's probably saving everyone from the drama. But it was just a performance thing. Like, look, Joey's cool. He just let him do his own thing. And also, the other thing that I don't want to be a sheep. I don't want to do what everyone else does just because everyone else does it. Now, as you said before, if alcohol provides me great benefits, if it makes me feel like King Kong and it adds 10 kilos of muscle and an increase in your bench press and makes me surf like a champion, there's some tangible benefits there. But when you ask most people why they do things, they don't know why they do it. You ask them their investment strategy. Oh, I'm just going to do buy and hold, and I hope the market goes up, or I'm gonna, I'm gonna go and do CrossFit because that's the latest fad, or F45. But people don't consciously know why they do things.
Yeah.
And when you're not clouded by drugs or alcohol or whatever, you make conscious choices and go, well, hang on a minute, why am I drinking? And then the other thing, again, if people want to drink, that's fine, as long as they're not my athletes or clientele. But it can sometimes be confronting for other people if you're out in a social setting where you're not drinking and they are, and they don't know you. They're like, you don't drink? You're a weirdo. There's something wrong with you, mate. You've often expressed this as well. And they think, oh, did your dad an alcoholic, or did he beat you up, or, did you, are you from Alcoholics Anonymous or something? I'm like, no, it's all good. Go and drink. But what it does, it makes them actually consciously think, why am I consuming this liquid? It's got calories, it's got alcohol, it's got poison in it. But again, there's no judgment. It's just like, if you want to drink, mate, go for it. It doesn't worry me. But it's my choice not to. But people get very defensive about it. And look, I'm a water connoisseur. There's my Antipodes water. I've got my reverse osmosis UV water system, mate. I love a good water. I don't actually drink. Usually don't drink anything. The most you'll get out of me is a juice. I go and get an organic juice once a month if I feel like having something sweet. But it's just a choice, mate. And it's performance. Water is pretty much all I drink. That's what we're designed to drink. Water and green tea. And mate, I don't feel like I'm missing out on something. I'm 100% conscious of all my decisions. So that means that if I was with a woman that wasn't at my standard, that I wouldn't have any excuses to say that it was the alcohol. So, and the other thing too, mate, it's it also takes a little bit of courage to be your own man and to answer to yourself, and not go along with what's expected. Just because everyone's jumping off a cliff doesn't mean you have to as well.
Sure.
So does that answer the question?
Oh, it's great, Joey. Yeah, I think it's a thin edge of the wedge, isn't it? We're in a minority if you're choosing not to drink, but the key word to me in that is choosing. And I think in life, a lot of people, we do things, and this is just the way human beings are, between 0 and 8, some would say 0 and 6 years of age, but 0 and 8 is my belief, is that we learn a whole bunch of things taught to us by those who are closest to us. Also, societally, we learn things in our socioeconomic environment that we're in. Relationship to our parents, obviously, and family and siblings is a big thing. But we learn a lot of what make us up, what is in our makeup in those times. And so people are on automatic pilot. They're doing things. You ask them, why are you doing that? I don't know. There's funny stories abound in that way. But to actually choose not to drink is a choice. And making a choice is always a good thing. If you choose to drink, then, okay, at least you're conscious about it, and that's great. But I think it's always a good thing to recognise, as human beings, we are built to perform, to do things and live our life. But when we start to be open about, hey, why am I doing this? Am I avoiding? Am I feeling insecure, inadequate? Whether that's skiting, carrying on about the money you make, the women you've met, etc., or whether you're doing it in the form of drinking alcohol just because you've always drunk it. I mean, that's the lousiest answer at all. Why do you drink? Well, I've always drunk. I mean, that's the most pathetic answer possible. But take control.
And it can't be the flavour. It can't be the taste. A lot of people apparently I've never done it, but the first drink most people have, spit it out. It's like, well, if that's what your natural instinct is, why would you want to keep consuming it?
Yeah. I think the wonderful thing, and this is something I've had the chance to really dig in, and you've been doing it for many years, but to dig in and say, why am I doing this? What's behind, what in me, what in my character, my belief about myself usually, what in me is causing me to make a decision to do that? What happened way back when I set that decision in place, and it continues to roll out today? Because, we do have the chance to design our life and be very conscious. And for me, things like meditation has been really beneficial. You talked about meditation and just getting present. For me, being present in the moment. I could say a lot about that, but that's been so great to just realize, hey, the only moment we have, and I'm really grateful for this moment you and I have right now, because Joey, you know, that water might go down my lungs. I keel over here, and I'm a mess on the floor here in Istanbul. And maybe I'll die. I don't know. That's not going to happen. But, the reality is the only moment we have in life is this moment we're sharing right now. You and I are sharing it. And I just thank you for the time, because
I'm happy to be here, man.
That is where life is. Life's occurring right now. It's not occurring in what's happened in the past, because that past is not actually accurate. Someone else's depiction or story about what happened back then is going to be different to ours. It's not truth, in fact. And what's going to happen in the future? Well, who knows? As well, it's all going to be clouded by our own perception of who we are and what we think we're worth. All these things come into play. But life is right now, and it's so good to be present where we are at the moment in time, to just take advantage of what life's offering. It's kicking up for me right now, an absolute ripping discussion with a good friend of mine, someone who I respect immensely, someone who's an expert in your field, and you give so much, Joey, to with the level of acumen that you've got in your craft is second to none, and that's demonstrated by not only the elite athletes you're working with, but also the fact that you're getting significant clients all over the world buying into Joey Hayes and what he can offer them in terms of peak performance. And it's just been a pleasure talking to you, man. I just I love the fact that we've been able to do that, and make that and create that. And where can people get in contact with you? Well, what we'll do, we'll put your details in the show notes, but just tell us briefly where people can head to right now to find out more about you, your programs, getting on board with the training and the Joey Hayes.
You guys guys looking for more information, check out ultimatesportsperformance.com.au. There's a newsletter sign-up link you can put there. But if you're a friend of David's or you're listening to the podcast and you'd like some more information, feel free to email us info@ultimatesportsperformance.com.au. And yes, I am an Aussie. I speak 300% faster than most Americans, and I know most Americans have trouble understanding me. So just think about it this way, is that I provide 300% more value because I speak 300% faster. So the content you get in 1 hour is equivalent to 3. How's that value for money? There you go.
There you go. Plus it's in Australian dollars, so maybe you should price yourself in
US mate, Australian dollars not too crash hot at the moment, the exchange rate. But anyway, it's all good.
Joey, it's been
US bucks.
Man, wonderful talking to you. Thanks for taking the time. It's been a lot of fun, and I know this is going to be very beneficial to our community. So thanks, my friend.
Great, man. Absolute pleasure. I'm looking forward to coming.
That's what happens. But how cool is this to be able to do this anyway, from Istanbul to Memo Beach in Australia? It's wonderful. So we'll sign off at that point.
I saw your photo of you on the plane going from, I think, JFK Airport to Germany, and it had, "Sir, where would you like to sit?" And there were 7 people on the plane. I was like, mate, I'll sit first class. Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, this COVID has certainly thrown up some interesting stuff, and travelling internationally, not a bad thing if you can do it. All the Americans, no one wants to see them, but you can come to Turkey. There's been plenty of Americans come here because for some reason, they just want the American dollar, let's be honest. They send them back there, but they can't travel much elsewhere. But Aussies still locked down. So this COVID thing's playing itself out. It's a great opportunity to discover yourself at the moment with COVID. I've found that the quietness, the restrictions, it really brings up a lot of stuff, and that's not pleasant necessarily, but it does. If you follow that through and are committed to understanding what's going on behind our decisions, behind our thoughts, etc., use some of the tools that are available on the internet in abundance. Hopefully this is providing a resource. Men like this guy, interviewing him, provide massive resource. But if we can understand what's behind us, what's really making us tick, this COVID time can turn into a beautiful time of self-realization. And I really hope that for this viewing community, that's what's occurring for you.
Beautiful, mate. I'm looking forward to catching up with you whenever you get back out. I'm looking forward to seeing the wedding video.
Yeah, right. Hey, good stuff.
Red bow tie covered in dirt.
That's it. Hey, my man, good to talk to you, and we'll sign off at that point. And thank you again. Cheers.